after the general elections, if there is no party has got complete majority, then two or more parties will gather and form a government. That's what we call as coalition. So here the basic terminology coalition is derived from Latin word coalitio, which means to grow together. So thus technically coalition means the act of uniting parts into one body or whole. Politically coalition means an alliance, an alliance of distinct political parties. So uh, So here in our syllabus, we have this coalition government, and at the same time, after 1977, there is government formed in central level, which means at union level, there is no single party after the uh, failure of Indian National Congress. So later Janata government formed this type of first coalition government in Indian system. So uh, afterwards, no single party is getting complete majority at any central level or state level. Sometimes the alliances are making to form the government, and sometimes single party is getting complete majority to form government in some states like Tamil Nadu or Kerala, or sometimes in Telangana or former Andhra Pradesh. So like that, these coalition governments has raised in Indian politics. So here we are going to discuss about the important features of this coalition government and the meaning of coalition governments and coalition governments in India, and also various coalition governments post independence till date. So here in the previous lesson, we are discussed about seven national parties and some important
General
regional
party.
parties and their
Right.
manifestos and their ideologies. So that political parties are always trying to get power into in at any level, which means a state level or central level. So here and who observes the Indian political system would accept that India has witnessed a coalition era in the past 3 decades. So, as we discussed after the 1977, the coalition government system has arrived in Indian political system. So, here we have to remember that the coalition is a phenomenon of multi-party government. So, coalition means there is no single party with complete majority. So, to form a government, the uh, party uh, ha, party together with alliance with any other parties without any discrimination of ideology or other things. The parties should form the government. Sometimes major parties are with major seats or some lesser seats. The majority system, which is mentioned in the Constitution of India, the majority should be raised by this alliance system. So here, the coalition government means a multi-party government where a number of minority parties. Minority parties means if they got one or two seats, even 10 or 15 seats, like that, not a complete majority. So they together join hands for the purpose of running the government, which is otherwise not possible. So a coalition is formed when many groups come into common terms with each other and define a common program or agenda on which they work. So here a coalition government always remains in pulls and pressures, particularly in a multinational country like India. So coalition politics and coalition government has been defined by many political thinkers in India when several political parties join hands to form a government and exercise political power on the basis of a common agreed program or agenda. So, as we discussed in yesterday's class, every political party wants to get political power. So, coalitions usually occur in modern parliaments when no single political party can muster a majority of votes. Two or more parties who have enough elected members between them to form a majority may then be able to agree on the common program that does not require too many drastic compromises with their individual policies and can proceed to form a government. So, here the coalition government is always a cooperative arrangement with which other distinct political parties are like all events are members of such parties unite to form a government or a ministry. So finally, the coalition is a direct descendant of the exigencies of multi-party system in democratic setup. So it's a phenomena of multi-party government where a number of minority parties joined hands for the purpose of running the government after the election. So a coalition is formed when many splinter groups in a house agree to join hands on a common platform by sinking their broad differences and form a majority in the house. So according to the famous political analyst and political thinker J.C. Johari stated the important features of these coalition government are important implications of coalition politics are coalitions are formed for the sake of some. Okay, done. So these coalition governments always set up by the group of political parties to run government uh, successfully to entire the tenure of the government. So always at least a coalition implies the existence of at least two parties. If we take an example of present union government NDA alliance with Telugu Desam party and some other parties before that in 2004 before 2004 UPA government, NDA government also there with the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee at the time also NDA National Democratic Alliance also is a example for the coalition government. After that 2004 and 2009 elections, United Progressive Alliance which is led by the Indian National Congress also example for the coalition government with many parties allianced with Congress party. So so minimum at least two parties will form this type of coalition government. So the principle of coalition system stands on the simple fact of temporary conjunction of specific interest. So if government wants to do something to prepare a policy or a program, all the parties should accept. If in coalition government, if any party wants to reject, the program will be withdrawn by the government. So there is no single decision making power in this coalition government. And also coalition politics is not a static but a dynamic affair as coalition players or groups dissolve and form new ones. So there are chances to form this coalition government within the stipulated period. The keynote of coalition politics is to compromise, and a rigid dogma has no place in it. So, a coalition government always works on the basis of minimum program, minimum to run the government for stipulated period. After the elections, we have minimum 5 years term for the next general elections. So, which may not be ideal for each partner of the coalition government system. Here, the pragmatism and not ideology is the hallmark of coalition politics. In making political adjustments, principles may have to be set aside. The purpose of coalition government, coalition adjustment is to seize power within that time period. In our country, we have seen coalitions coming up either before the elections or the after the elections. If we see before elections, also some parties will together campaign for the next elections, and together, if they get majority, they will form the government and they will share major portfolios within their agreement. The pre-poll coalition is considerably advantageous because it provides a common platform to the political parties in order to the electorate on the basis of joint manifesto. The post-election union is intended to enable constituents to share political power and run the government. If we take an example of UPA or NDA, the two majority coalition governments has went in general elections with common manifesto with the alliance of other parties. So if we take an example of this formation of coalition governments in the first four Lok Sabha elections during 1952, 1957, 1962, and 1967, the Congress Party, the Indian National Congress Party, secured required majority to form the government at the center. Even though there was a split in the Congress Party in 1969, the minority government of Indira Gandhi managed to continue with the outside support of the CPI, Communist Party of India, and the DMK, Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, and other parties. Again, the Congress Party again won the 1971 elections and formed a single party government. However, the dominant Congress Party was badly defeated in the 1977 elections. Since then, there have been a number of coalition governments at the center. So, the first experience of this coalition government in free India at the union level goes back to 1977, when non-Congress forces united under the leadership of Morarji Desai in the name of Janata government. So, Ram Manohar Lohia in 1963 had propounded the strategy of anti-Congressism or non-Congressism. He was of the opinion that since the past three general elections, the Congress had won with a thumping majority. There was feeling among the masses that the Congress could not be defeated and it had come to stay in power forever. So Lohia invited all the opposition parties to field a single candidate against Congress, come out of the illusion that Congress can't be defeated. So this formula of Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia saw success in the 1967 general elections with the Congress party defeated in 7 states and Samyukta Vidya Dal governments formed by the opposition parties. So the these Lohia's formula showed the seeds of coalition politics in India. The first coalition was formed under the experience of Morarji Desai in 1977. He was the oldest man to become Prime Minister of India. The four-party Janata government remained in power for about 2 years, that is 1977 to 1979. The power struggle in the government did not allow Morarji Desai to continue anymore. Once the no confidence motion against Morarji Desai was discussed in the lower house, Mr. Desai tendered his resignation. The Janata government collapsed like a house of cards in July 1979 when floodgates of defections opened with the departure of various group leaders like George Fernandez, H.N. Bahuguna, Biju Patnaik, and Mudli Mai. So after that, after that, the second coalition in a new coalition was formed with Mr. Charan Singh as the Prime Minister in October 1979. He was the only Prime Minister who did not face the Parliament. Means he did not attended Parliament during his tenure. So this coalition had the support of CPIM and the CPI. On the paper, Charan Singh had to absolute majority, but once President asked him to seek a vote of confidence in the House, within the 3 weeks' time, Mr. Charan Singh tendered his resignation before facing the House, hence became the first Indian Prime Minister who did not face the House. Then again in 1989, we have seen third coalition was formed in the name of National Front under the leadership of VP Singh in December 1989. VP Singh government also was supported by BJP and then a single largest party Congress, which did not form the government as a political strategy. National government also had support of CPI, CPIM, and the RSP and the Forward Bloc. But the period was short lived when BJP withdrew its support to VP Singh on the eve of Advani's arrest on the backdrop of his Rathayatra from Somnath to Gujarat, despite BJP's warning to withdraw support if Advani is arrested. Though National Front government remained in power only for 11 months. Then the Indian President R. Venkatraman observes, it is my impression that if VP Singh had headed a government with a clear majority instead of depending on a conglomeration of parties mutually destructive to each other, he would have given a good administration to the country. Being dependent on the parties with different objectives and different ideologies, he could not withstand pressures from discordant groups. So the the emergence of political party, these coalition governments we have seen from the 1977 to till now we are seeing these type of coalition governments. So if we discuss about the kinds of coalition governments, there are several types of coalitions floating in the political systems across the globe down the centuries. The chief among them are like communal coalition. Like if we take an example of present scenario, as a sequel of the communal frenzy released by the demolition of Babri Masjid at Ayodhya by the BJP and its alliance, a coalition government consisting of BJP, Shiva Sena, and rebel congressmen who won the elections and supported the BJP Shiva Sena combination after elections came into existence in Maharashtra. Though the, the secular forces in Maharashtra secured highest percentage of votes than the BJP Shiva Sena combined. The rebel congressmen made the formation of BJP Shiva Sena coalition in Maharashtra possible way. So some type of secular coalition also we have seen secular based political parties like CPI, CPIM, Indian National Congress, Rashtriya Janata Dal, Samajwad Party, Bahujan Samaj Party, etc., are among the main players who came forward with secular ideas to form the secular bloc. So, some sorts of positive coalitions also we have seen in Indian political system. This is also known as positive alliance because it is constructive and is formed with the object of pulling down political party in power and also that of providing an alternative government. Sometimes there is negative coalition also we'll see this is when the parties join and come together just with the object of pulling down the government already in power. It does not take the burden of forming a new government. It does not provide better alternative. Then such a coalition can be destructive or negative coalition. And also an expression coalition also there. It means implied secret of internal in the sense a tacit coalition is mere understanding with some group without actually mixing with it. In this system, the sharing of power is not substantial. So, so as we discussed, the pages of coalition government, the one is pre-election coalition, and the second one is post-election alliance or coalition. So pre-election coalition means adjustment between the parties. This type of coalition is very important as it occurs prior to the general elections. It fosters better understanding between the political parties in general and the party members in particular, which provides a common platform and attracts the voters on the basis of a joint manifesto. If we see the post election alliance, unlike pre election alliance, here the understanding between the parties or the leaders representing them occurs only after they are done with the general elections. So, it is a union to share political power and run the government. It is compromise or a agreement after the elections. So, in other words, it is an opportunistic type of coalition. So, when the coalition group as a whole secures a majority in elections, it gets a mandate to rule and implement its agreed program and policies. So, consequently, it forms a government in which every coalition partner has a share, and the coalition government exercises power for getting effect to the agreed policies and programs which are promised by the manifesto during the elections. So, in other words, a coalition government means the formation of a government by a group of political parties, and coalition politics means the collective exercise of power by a group of political parties as coalition partners. India is not the first nation to form the coalition government. We find it even England, France, Germany, Switzerland, etc. The present uh, political system, there are many coalition governments are there in the globe. So, uh, even India chose this type of democracy system, and that for almost 70 years now we have worked a vibrant democratic system as a major achievement. So the study of coalitions is at very infant stage of a recent advent in India. However, it may prove to be an enormous importance for our country. These coalitions are a necessary stage in the evolution of democracy. They might constitute a natural step in the process of transformation from a multi-party system to bi-party system in India, a country where exist some 100 plus political parties. As we discussed, there are 2,000 around registered parties are there. So the fact is the there is maximum chances are there to form coalition governments in India for more time. So because the ideological clashes, the system of this formation of government with the different manifestos by the different political parties, the this coalition system is different from the single party government. If we see the characteristics of coalition politics, the formation is first characteristic of coalition politics. Formation means a coalition government is not a government of a single party. As we discussed, if there is no complete majority to form a government, there is a chance to form a coalition government. If if uh, we if we take an example of union government, the president may call the president may call uh, to form a government for the political parties. At that time only, the other parties with the ideology, with the same ideology or with different ideologies, they may form a group and to show the majority in the house to form the government. So then only the coalition government will form at any level, which means at union level or at state level. So the formation is important for this coalition government. So it is formed by an alliance of two or more political parties. Then only we will call it as coalition government. All this depends on various political conditions. So the political conditions also decides the system of coalition government. And also the poll alliances, the partners in the coalition might or might not have pre-poll alliance. They may even be formed after elections. As we discussed, pre-election coalition, post-election coalition, as we discussed. If we take an example of pre-poll alliance or coalition, maximum times pre-poll coalition parties are formed the government, like NDA, the UPA, the both two groups are come together uh, during the election campaign with different manifestos. After the got majority, if NDA got majority, they will form coalition government. If UPA got majority, they will form a coalition government. So the alliances will change by pre-poll or post-poll elections. So joining and parting also important for this coalition system. The political parties in the coalition come together under circumstances. They part company if these circumstances cease to exist. So here we have to know that if if there is agreement to form coalition government, the parties should accept together their moves, which means if they want a major portfolios, major ministries, or major posts in the government, they have to give to them. So if they are not satisfied with that portfolios, they may withdraw support for this coalition government. Then again, government will collapse. So there is chances for this type of parting in the coalition system. And also free choice, the parties in the coalition are not generally bound to stay together. They're joining or withdrawing from a coalition or lending support to another coalition is a matter of their choice. So there is no rigid stand also there for this coalition government. They may not survive for the entire term. Sometimes they may dissolve within the time. The partners in the coalition are supposed to give up their rigid stand. For example, the BJP had to put aside its stand on Article 370, Ayodhya issue, and Uniform Civil Code after forming the NDA coalition. And also, common minimum program or agenda also there for this coalition government. Coalition government may have some sort of common minimum program which is acceptable to all the parties in the coalition group. For example, the United Progressive Alliance, the NDA, National Democratic Alliance, are there with some common minimum program or agenda. And also, sometimes in case of lack of support from the parties within the coalition government, they may get support from the outside parties. If there is a chance to proceed for the no confidence motion, so the coalition government may have some sort of support from some other political parties to get the required majority. The UPA and the NDA governments had to receive the support of some other parties which were not their partners. So nature of responsibility also one of the important characteristic of this coalition government. The ministers in a coalition government are under the influence of the leaders of their respective parties rather than under the leadership of the prime minister. So as we discussed, if their choices, their wishes will not accepted by the coalition government, they may resign, they may withdraw support for their coalition group. So selection of the leader also important for this coalition government. The coalition government is generally headed by the leader of the party, which secured highest numbers of seats in the Lok Sabha at central level, in the state assembly in case of state government. If we take an example, if our parliament, our Lok Sabha is consisting of 545 members, if there is to form a government, at least 280 members to form a government. Uh, if one party got 150 seats and two or more parties secured 140 seats to the required number of 280 MPs, so the highest number of parties who member of parliament seats got in this coalition group, that party may get chance to choose the prime minister candidate. So the coalition government, the highest number of seats in the Lok Sabha at central level will be choose to their leader of the house, which means prime minister candidate. So the demands and compromise also there in coalition government is always under demands and compromise. If the coalition has weak majority, even a small party exploits the situation and tries to achieve as many benefits as possible by its demands, which may not be reasonable. The Prime Minister has to play politics of expediency to make compromise. And also, there will be selfish interests also there. Some parties in the coalition try to get maximum benefit to satisfy the political interests of their own region. This is due to the rise of regional parties. And also, there is large side ministries also there due to prior agreement to form the coalition government. So the coalition government is generally large side as it has satisfied all the parties of the coalition. There are some of the features of coalition government. It is very difficult to the prime minister to place government in balance. So some coalition governments could not complete their tenure completely. However, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who led the NDA government from 1999 to 2004 with more than 20 political parties, could complete his tenure. Later, the UPA government with more than 10 political parties could complete his tenure. So, later, the UPA government with more than 10 political parties could manage two terms under the leadership of Manmohan Singh from the period of 2004 to 2014. The NDA government under the leadership of Narendra Modi could form a strong government as the BJP could secure a good majority. The BJP led NDA formed the government at center with the BJP's historic landslide victory in 2019 Lok Sabha elections. So from 1967 to 1977, as we discussed, there is a split in the coalition government. After that, 1977 to 1989 also, there is a splits in coalition governments with clashes between the uh, parties within the coalition group. From 1989 to 1996, the coalition politics had several dimensions in this period. In 1989, some political parties like Janmorcha, Janata Party, Lokdal formed the National Front in these elections. The National Front emerged as the potent political force. As we discussed, the leadership of VP Singh, it had secured the outside support from the government, from the BJP and left parties. So at this time, this government worked as a coalition government for about 18 months. In 1991 general elections to the Lok Sabha, there was no party which could secure majority to form government. However, the Indian National Congress secured 225 seats and became a single largest party. The BJP secured 119 seats to second position. A minority government by the Indian National Congress under the leadership of Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao was formed the government. This government completed its term and continued in office until 1996 with complete tenure, with stresses and strains during their tenure. It may be said that this period brought a significant development in party politics. It is the rise of the BJP in Indian politics. The National Front had to depend on its support from government, and it had to fall down when the BJP withdrew its support. The BJP started rising from this period onwards. From 1996 to 2004, it's a very important period in coalition politics. It almost all the other periods, the party politics had two aspects, namely Congressism and non-Congressism. Most of the coalition governments in the earlier phases were formed to oppose the Congress party. Even the United Front government was formed to oppose the Congress, and for this, it took the support of the BJP and left parties. So, the BJP has established itself as a strong force. The Congress has lost its supremacy in Indian politics. So, before examining this interesting phenomenon, we have to know the changes in the governments during 1996 to 2004. So, BJP emerged as a single largest party in 1996 with 161 seats in the Lok Sabha. The Congress secured 140 seats in the Lok Sabha. The remaining seats were secured by all other political parties. So, no party could survive or secure majority to form the government. As the BJP was the single largest party, the president invited Atal Bihari Vajpayee to form government and prove his majority in the Lok Sabha and prove the confidence motion within the period of 2 weeks. So Atal Bihari Vajpayee could not support to secure the other parties. So he had to resign on the 13th day. At the same time, the Congress also could not get the support of other parties as there was anti-Congressism. However, many parties Many parties come together and form the coalition called United Front, which consisted of Janata Dal, Communist Party of India, Trinamool Congress, Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, Telugu Desam Party, etc. So these parties elected Mr. H.D. Devagowda as the leader of the front, and he became the Prime Minister of India. So the United Front formed a common minimum program too. So in the 12th Lok Sabha elections conducted in 1998, there was a hung Lok Sabha again. The political parties formed alliances, but no alliance secured majority to form the government in these elections. BJP had secured 180 seats and its alliance got a total of 253 seats. So the BJP under the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee formed the government with the support of Telugu Desam Party and Trinamool Congress. The alliance formed a coalition government and adopted national agenda for governance. This government had to face many difficulties due to the lack of coordination among the constituents and irresponsible attitude of AIADMK and Janata Party. So the government could not sail the boat as the AIADMK withdrawn his support. The government failed to secure confidence vote in 1999 by a margin of just one vote. So the government resigned as there was no other party, including Congress, to get required majority support to form government. The Lok Sabha was dissolved at that time. There was new dimension in coalition politics in 1919 elections. So the BJP formed National Democratic Alliance with 23 other parties. So So it secured almost 296 seats and increased strength by the support of some other political parties. In the history of coalition governments in India, the government was successful enough to provide stability and continuity in spite of stresses and strains. The government could almost complete its full term even though it's dissolved the Lok Sabha a few months earlier before its life. So the success of the coalition government of the NDA from 1999 to 2004 in enjoying its full term is the fact that it had adhered to the fundamental principles of the political national agenda mostly. For instance, the BJP sidelined some of the basic ideologies such as Ram Mandir at Ayodhya, abolition of Article 370, and enactment of Uniform Civil Code. Its leader was successful in maintaining political expediency. So, if we see from the period of 2004 to 2019, this is also one of the most important period for successful coalition governments. So, they have been two coalition governments run by United Progressive Alliance and National Democratic Alliance. So, during this period, the UPA headed by the Congress party under the leadership of Manmohan Singh successfully ran a coalition government two terms, namely from 2004 to 2009 and 2009 to 2014. The coalition governments run by the Indian National Congress could be termed as the first Congress coalition governments. However, these coalition governments run by the Congress party also had to face many problems by the attitude of its alliance parties. So, more this government had to face several issues like price rise, terrorism, stock market scandals, hunger deaths of handloom artisans, political and social corruption, and so on. It had to face ignominy of the corrupt practices of its partners in coalition. For example, 2G spectrum craze, like many other issues also there. Consequently, in 2014 elections, the UPA and the Congress had to face bitter humiliation. So even though it could run two terms, the question of its managing a coalition has become an issue. In spite of this, the Congress and its allies played a dynamic role in exhibiting this vigor and strength in Indian politics. So the UPA formed. So in 2014, the BJP led coalition NDA government assumed office. It secured absolute majority. In fact, the BJP itself secured enough seats to form the government. However, the BJP itself secured enough seats to form the government. So, however, BJP led NDA could run the government at the center as well as states successfully. Narendra Modi, the prime minister, became a popular leader in the country. It is even said that BJP itself could win the elections without an alliance. From 2018 onwards, the influence of BJP started increasing. The BJP could get more and more partners in the fold of NDA group and emerged victorious in the 2019 elections. So we can say that there have been coalition governments during the period 2004 to 2019 run by the UPA and NDA. All this shows that there is some sort of maturity which seems to pave way to new trends in Indian political system. At the same time, we have to say that our political system is still on process. We cannot rule out the emergence of third front in near future. Some politicians like K. Chandrasekhar Rao hope that a non-Congress and non-BJP government may likely to form a federal front government with many regional parties of the country. He is trying to get support from the other regional parties in other states other than Telangana. So, if we discuss about the bipolarity in coalition governments, uh, it seems that there is bipolarity in the coalition system. The bipolarity in coalition system appears to be on the process of institutionalization. Bipolarity means two party alliance. The political parties in India today, whether regional or national, are divided into groups. One is the parties which oppose the Indian National Congress, one, and another one is the parties which oppose the BJP. So the two ideologies means two variations is there in this bipolarity in coalition governments. In other words, the parties are mostly divided on the form of certain ideology which is either against Congressism or BJPism. In this way, there has been bipolarity in our coalition government. So India is a multicultural country with diversity. So coalition governments are necessary. So there was Congress domination for many years in the Indian political system. However, the trend of coalition was represented by the non-Congress parties in all elections. So if we see, there are many changes are there in Indian political system. Until 1998, the political parties had two groups, namely Congress and non-Congress. After 1998, the situation was changed to non-BJP and non-Congress. So the two groups of parties, BJP and non-BJP, are said to have two ideologies, namely nationalism and secularism. So the support of certain parties to either the Congress or the BJP was negative in nature. It was in a way to oppose the other force. For instance, the Telugu Desam party's support to the Congress is mainly to oppose the BJP, because before that the TDP supported BJP before this support to the Congress. So thus there are two factors in the Indian party system at present. There are anti-Congressism and BJPism. So anti-BJPism. So that's what the other regional parties try to form a federal front with the support of other political parties in India with the ideology of non-Congress and non-BJP. So their ideology is against to the two groups, namely NDA and UPA. So the coalition governments are being formed either on the policy of anti-Congressism or anti-BJPism. So the attempts of forgiving the third force to set aside either the Congress or the BJP have not been fruitful. If these attempts are successful, there would be a multi-party in our coalition system. But so far, this has not been materialized. In view of above these factors, it may be said that bipolarity is an emerging trend in our coalition governments. So some sort of bipolarity in the coalition government, especially at central level. In the state level, such bipolarity has not taken place as so far. It seems to see that this bipolarity also is at crossroads. There are many parties which oppose both BJP and the Congress. These parties wish to form a third front or a federal front. So at present, Indian political system is moving on the a coalition era. There have been coalition governments since 1967 in the states, 1977 at the central level. The so-called Hindutva attitude of Bharatiya Janata Party consolidates some parties to be associated with the UPA-led Congress Party. In this way, most of the regional parties and some national parties join either UPA or NDA. In other words, those parties which do not like Congress associate themselves with the BJP, and those parties which do not like BJP join the UPA. Therefore, we find bipolarity in the Indian politics due to the factors of anti-BJP and anti-Congress system. At the same, some facts cannot be ignored. The political parties mostly do not adhere to standard principles. Many a times the parties change their loyalties from the one alliance to another alliance. For example, the Telugudesam party, which was the part of the NDA during the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, during the leadership of Narendra Modi, once is now associated with the UPA. The TRS has not clearly expressed its view. They supported two parties. So, in fact, there are many political parties like TDP and TRS also, which are neither in the UPA nor in the NDA. Their support to an alliance depends on various political conditions. In this context, we can say that we have coalition governments. All the parties are not virtually divided into UPA or NDA. There are many parties which have their own ideology and their own principles. In the recent years, there has been a talk to keep both Congress and BJP away to form the government at the center. Some politicians have the idea of forming a federal front or third front. In fact, this is not a new proposal. It has been there for decades. However, such a front could not materialize so far. In this way, our Indian political system is still on the process of this coalition system. It is said that the rise of regional parties and their role at the center is not good for unity and integrity of the nation. However, some hold the view that the rise of regional parties is necessary to have a strong federation. Thus, there are various views put forth in this regard in order to ensure the stability, the beauty of our political system. Necessary rules and regulations have to be framed. The Indian Constitution is a great work, the provision of which would safeguard the people without any Herculean task. So, even though many trends also arriving soon, a study of these various coalition governments has started the alliance and ideologies of this coalition government system. So we have to remember that a coalition government is a group of parties made government called as coalition government. So we have to remember the features of this coalition government and also the evolution of coalition governments in India. So you may ask these type of questions about this lesson. So in tomorrow's class, we are going to discuss about some social factors like caste, religion, and gender in Indian politics. And in next class, we are going to discuss about social movements in India. So here in India, we are having unity in diversity and many religions, many regions, many castes, many cultures are there in India. So the existence of social diversity does not threaten democracy. So political expression of social differences is possible at some time, quite desirable in democratic system. So in next class, we are going to discuss about these social differences based on gender, religion, caste. In each case, we are going to discuss about the nature of this division in India, how it gets expressed in politics, and also we are going to discuss about different expressions based on these differences are healthy or otherwise in a democracy. So, gender and politics is an important concept in Indian political system. So, in tomorrow's class, we are going to discuss about this concept caste, religion, and gender in Indian politics. So, for
Thank you, sir.
many messages are there in chat box. Okay. For today, I am closing the session. Thank you for your patience to listen our class. Tomorrow we will meet again at same time 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Thanks for attending the class. I am concluding the session. Thanks one and all.